What is up? What is up? You know, if I am ever on time with a podcast, ever, dude, the entire audience will keel over and die.
You need to stay off your phone talking to people all damn day long.
Yeah, shut up. I literally spent 55 minutes talking to Wickman while driving home from the property where I
told you about the new car, but he didn't tell me crap. Okay, I see how it goes.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's actually a truck, to be fair.
Truck.
But
there it is.
Yeah. that is not it. That is not it. But I would own that.
I don't know.
I would.
That's up your alley.
It is not that. I'll send it to myself and I'll show it in a little bit. So Crosby is not here right now. I am hoping that Crosby joins us soon, mostly because I sent him the wrong time. So I sent him the wrong time, which would have been way earlier today. Didn't know that until approximately 3 minutes ago. Hey, here he is. Here we go. Hey.
Blame it on the cataract surgery.
Yeah, exactly. Who's the one that had the cataract surgery and can't decide on the time? That would be you, not me.
Yeah, whatever.
Sorry. My bad.
Surgery? Dude, I'm the one to find drugs.
Yeah, well, no, but dude, Crosby just had a bionic eyeball put in the other day. So he got a bionic lens. Yeah, he has one eye now, that his left eye where he can make, or no, right eye.
Right eye.
Make it all like the bionic man. It's awesome.
Shoot laser beams.
Yeah, you can shoot laser beams.
It's so freaking hard to get a shark with a freaking laser beam attached.
Brian, everybody, Chad Reynolds, of course, James Crosby down below me, right there, the one and only Brian Stupski, who right now is questioning why he made the decision to join us.
It's so barefaced. I should have put something on, you know?
It's all good. Let me put it this way. The rest of us have beards. The rest of us have beards to cover up the fact that we have no talent. You, on the other hand, my friend, are incredibly talented. So
I need to grow longer hair than I cover the whole face.
Yeah, whatever. I'm going to show some of your talent here in a little while. So,
speak for yourself, Reynolds.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh God. The if you don't know Brian Stupski, you will by the end of this show. Not only is he incredibly talented, funny, good looking, charming, all those things, but he is a car guy through and through, and some of the baddest, coolest, funnest, neatest stuff on the planet. And it's just fun. And so I am thrilled to death to have him on the show. Of course, we got Wickman in the house and McTaggart. McTaggart is drinking moonshine already, so that's good. No,
it is in water only.
Oh,
and water only for the foreseeable future.
Oh, because poor McTaggart, his blood pressure is like 120 psi oil pressure at idle, so it's not good. He's ready to kill us all.
Stop idling.
Yeah, stop idling. Maybe, yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. Your blood pressure would be fine if you were at $9,000. So that's the only difference. Just go to $9,000 all the time. It'll be fine.
Dude, you know what I own? If I went to $9,000, you'd see a piston flying over your house.
That's true.
Well,
that is
dry thump that bitch then.
Okay, so for those that are just joining us, thank you for joining us for this episode of Power Shift. Everybody that is listen to our lead-in music, which is Bow Chicka Bow Wow. It is great. Love it. Kenny Edwards in the house, Val in the house, Neil Sabo, Barnalicious, of course. Everybody that's here, thank you so much. So now, because everybody's going to ask, when I was 16, well, my first car was my 69 Camaro convertible that I have, right? But it wasn't ready when I turned 16. So when I turned 16, I shared a car with my mom, like normal people. When she was going to school, then she had the car. When she wasn't, I had the car, right? So then I got a 1985 Mitsubishi, I'm going to call it a Mighty Max. They didn't call them that then, but anyway, a Mighty Max that my grandpa had and bought brand new. And he let me. And
it was also a what?
A turbo diesel. It was awesome. So it was a D55 turbo diesel. The thing made big torque, did crazy fun burnouts. It was awesome. But my grandpa let me use it because him and my grandma traveled full time. Anyway, fast forward, I was like 18 or 19 years old. Grandpa comes in one day and goes, "Hey, you know what? I've decided I don't want to own the truck anymore. So it's time, I think, for it to change. I don't use it anymore. I know you've been driving it, but you
ruined it, so you can have it."
Yeah, well, and that was it. I thought for sure he was selling the son of a bitch, and then he ends up laughing because I was in panic mode, and he hands me the title. We literally walked out of the door of his motorhome and went outside and cut the coils on the thing and put 3-inch blocks on it that day, right? So that was my first.
Do you want this? I was just going to throw it in the trash anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So that was my first mini truck. I love the thing. It ate a rod bearing later in life, and I was too chicken then to small block swap it. So it went away. I've always wanted another one. They're stupid money now because they're hard to find, the first gen Mighty Maxes. I found one today and I bought it for $550. So it does not run. But you can. I don't. If that makes it totally fit in my car world. I'm
shocked.
I know, right? You would be blown away if I was driving it today. You'd be like, "That can't be yours. Come on." So
because it wouldn't make any sense to spend another $3,000 and buy something that actually freaking ran.
Hey, shut your mouth! I don't have that money. I shouldn't spend the $550, but I did.
I don't have that money, and I did.
Yeah, true. Hey, here's the thing. Remember, in the wise words of David Freiberger, he said, this is the only time I will
I've
ever
never
say
heard that in a sentence.
It's the only time I'll ever say that. Freiberger once said, "I will never have a $100,000 car collection. I will have a collection of $100,000 cars." And and that's where I'm at. But I got to pick up a few that are worth less than that because I have a couple that are worth more. So that's
ambitious thinking on his part.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So anyway, I have picked one up. It needs a cylinder head, but it has you're gonna love this, Crosby.
Which motor's in it?
brand new tires on it. Brand new. Nipples still on it. Okay. And not old. New, like 6 months old new. It has
because I hate old nipples.
I know. No, you don't. I've seen how you roll. You do not. You love
Well, thanks. I can now smell colors. Appreciate it.
Thank God and Alice just walked out.
Look at Brian, dude. Stupsky is about to keel over right there. That is awesome. I swear to God, he's like, "What right here, right now?"
My Aunt Alice was just in here.
Well, you're the one that did it with your Aunt Alice. You know what I mean. Yes. It's not my fault, Wickman. It's not my fault. Look at him. He's crying at his own self. He's laughing so hard. Jesus Christ. Help me, Lord. Yes. As Valerie says, well, that escalated quickly. Yeah, hey, here we go.
Or de-escalated.
God. So anyway, it has a 4G63B in it, which is a narrow block 2.0 4-cylinder single overhead cam 8-valve thing.
A 4 or 5?
A what? Cylinder?
No, 84 or 85.
It's an 86.
Oh, it's a 6.
Yeah, so it has a 4G63B in it.
Work truck when I was young. I love that thing.
Yeah, if anybody has a double overhead cam head off of a Mitsubishi Eclipse, an early Eclipse that has a 4G63 in it, I might be interested in that, or an engine. Yes, I know you know where there is one, Wickman, but it's a long way away from me. So that could be a thing. Or if somebody has a line on a 4G63B, I need at least the head, maybe a motor. But anyway, so there you go. And before you go, LS swap and do all the things, this thing is going to get bagged, laid on its balls, and cruised around. So while an LS is perfect and everything, there's really just not any need. So I don't care. So
yeah, this is all going to happen by next week too, right?
100%.
Okay.
And Barn says, "You smart ass Barn, you're fired." You're not fired. Don't ever. Hard to wear tires on a not running car. Yeah, thanks a lot, Barn. I thought you were my guy. I thought I had one supporter here. If you can't say nice things.
The funny thing is, somehow, some way, one of them will be flat next week.
Look at this. Barn now, look at him. He's just jumping on. So you paid $500 for 4 tires and you threw in a body. It has a brand new clutch in it too.
Well, yeah.
$500 for a set of tires is actually doing good right now.
Those tires cost him $550. That's why he took that money. He said, "I need to cover the cost of the tires. They were $550 a month."
Exactly.
You're my dude.
Everything that is consumable will never be consumed because it will never run.
My Volvo is now worth more than parts than as a whole car. So
do what?
My Volvo.
Yes, it is. It's worth more in parts, and it's a whole car.
Yeah.
You know what I get? What I get a kick out of is Cole went on that big rant about somebody saying he's never going to get his truck done.
Yeah.
And the irony that he thinks he's going to get all his stuff done, and you think that somehow this shit's going to run. So does it run in the family or what?
Yeah, whatever. I've never once told him that he'd get his shit done. I told him all the time to quit whining his bitch ass about it not being done, because that's how projects work. You can get shit done, or you can, if you're made out of money, and if you're not, then that's how it is. I don't care. I enjoy the hunt and the acquisition. That's all that matters. I'm happy. That's all that counts.
So you're living Freiberger's dream of multiple $1,000 cars then?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Okay. Now
I thought it was pretty good that I bought an under $1,000 car and actually brought it home, because I own 2 of those that I've never seen in my life.
I'm actually kind of impressed because, the body mounts are still on it. It's got new nipples.
It does. See?
You're going good.
I haven't even shown you a picture of it yet.
At least it's not a Dodge
I don't
Duster.
know if we can post pictures of nipples on TV.
We can. It's okay. They're covered. So it's fine. It has pasties on. It's all good. So,
I still got the tire stickers on it.
Exactly. Oh,
Bluetooth SEMA build.
Yes. Yeah, dude. Yeah, my truck is perfectly SEMA worthy.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on.
it rolls in on new tires. It's a SEMA car.
It is. Dude, you know what's funny about that? Okay, so Stupsky, how many cars have you done a rendering of that were
Had new tires? Oh,
that were done for SEMA, but you don't need to name the cars. I'm not having you throw anybody under the bus. But how many of them were not running and driving cars when they actually went to the SEMA show?
Here's your answer right there.
can we go percentage wise? Let's say,
Sure. Yeah, let's do that. What do you
being
think?
nice, being really nice about it, 65%.
Yeah, there you go.
Easy.
Yep,
Yeah, it's
You're doing better than most.
I know.
man.
There is. Hey, Carrie Olson's on here saying Brian for president. I agree with that. I love Stupsky.
Hey, thanks. Hi, Carrie.
So for those of you that are not familiar, okay, I'm gonna pull up. If you go to problemchildcustomswithak.com, you will see the world of Brian Stupsky. You have seen the world of Brian Stupsky a bunch of times. You just may not know it. I don't actually do. Did you design this shirt that I'm wearing? Probably not. It's too simple.
No, sir. No.
Yeah, it's way too simple. But Stupsky used to work for Holly, designed a jillion T-shirts and such for them. I mean, too many, show posters and show T-shirts for all kinds of events, whether they were Holly events or not, for years and years and years and years, and unbelievable renderings and such from events or of car builds and such for years. It's unbelievable the career that you have had, quite frankly, because you've been doing this for so long. And you're a nice guy. Like let me say, the reason I say that, there are a bunch of dudes that do renderings who are dicks. Like there are some very well-known artists who are dicks. I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to call any of them out on purpose, like that maybe their initials are TT. But anyway, they're dicks, and you're not. And that's awesome. So that's saying something.
Strangely enough, I was going
straight
to that.
Right?
If he wasn't going to do
I got fired up.
initial.
I normally would not have said that kind of thing, but I don't care. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. But you're like, I mean, you are seriously like one of those people that, I've never met anybody that didn't dig you and what you do.
That's funny. Yeah, I try to be nice because my run-in with that TT guy was was not a good experience.
See,
He's
there you
probably
go.
still bitter about driving that Chevy Lumina van he had to.
I guess so. I mean,
Robbie
killer
knows what van I'm
apparel,
talking about.
Yeah,
killer renderings.
I was at Santini's shop one day when shit went south. Santini was yelling at him as he was walking down the driveway. It's not like drawing on a flat piece of paper, is it, fuckhead?
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Oh, I remember. I know what you're talking about, Crosby. Yes, laying out graphics. I remember that. Yes.
There was a big pile of 1/8-inch tape laying there as he throws down the roll and goes walking towards said van,
right,
and bails. That was on one of.
Tell you, Brian.
That was on Fairweather's truck, that turquoise truck.
Oh yeah. Well, I have to tell you, Brian, that Ride a Ride, Slide a Slide, Pet a Goat is just one of my favorite things ever. This one with the goat hanging out of the car door or window is awesome.
I've got if you scroll up a little bit, Chad, to the King of the Heap one. That's one of my personal favorites. It's
King of the Heap is really good too. That's true.
A little bit.
Dude, all of this, your whole line work that you do on them and stuff, like all of this is just, and it's not just the line work. Then there's all this detail that's in the background in it that's super cool. Yeah, you should think about doing this for a living, Brian.
I keep thinking about it, but I keep telling my kids not to, so I can't be a hypocrite,
Are your kids artists too?
No. Not in the art sense. Definitely they're BS artists, but no,
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
no, they're all good kids. They're
How old are your kids?
let's see. I've got 26, 24, and 19.
Oh, see, so yours are right there where mine are. So it's the same deal. So you and I could totally compare stories on our kids, and like we love them, but we also want to kill them. It just depends on the day.
Exactly. Like I felt bad. I was booting one out of here tonight. I was like, I gotta get on a podcast, and he's like, "Oh, rock star," and he left. So.
Yes, rock star is right.
Whatever.
So you've got, I mean, a lot of cool renderings and what have you that you've done over the years. But how did you get into this? How did this all start? How did the Brian Stupski we know and love today? How did that evolve? Where, I mean, give us like, were you an artist as a kid, et cetera? Like, tell us the story.
Well, how far back do you want to go? Like,
whatever you want, dude. It doesn't matter.
So
it's your show. You tell me.
We're gonna have to start off with like, okay, this guy in Buffalo met this chick.
That would be funny, though. It would be funny.
But literally, it was my parents. Both my parents were super huge car people. Like, I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, my parents were into cars." No, like my parents lived, breathed, ate, slept, drank, everything cars. And not to hold anything against them, they were Tri-5 people.
Yeah,
but like,
right. I own one of those. Yeah.
So it's a different world. But like, I grew up in that, and I always kind of drew. Like, just kind of got into it from an early age. Always had a pencil in my hand, drawing something. And it started off like drawing like my Hot Wheels cars. And I think it's the reason I draw everything from basically the same stupid angle. Is I got so used to it sitting on a table and going, I'm going to draw the car this way. And I kind of got into that. And my mom actually gave me my first break. My first professional paying gig was through her car club. And really? I designed a T-shirt one year, and that led to. How
old were you?
Oh, geez, 15.
That's awesome.
I was 15. Yeah, that bought more parts for my '69 Chevelle at the time, which was like great for me.
Good
and
car.
It clicked on me that I was like, man, I can make money drawing things, and have money for my car. So it beat the hell out of going outside in the wintertime and shoveling snow in neighbors' driveways for money. And it just kind of picked up from there. And I put it aside for a while. I went to school, started off in engineering, and just found out that, this is a story I love sharing with people. I was in the engineering program, and one day I had met a friend who was in the fine art program, and she says, oh, come on over sometime, check out what I'm working on. Well, I go over to the fine art side of the campus, and I realized there's a lot more girls on that side of the campus than there were in my classes.
I was going to say something about the engineering and non-females.
There were none at the time. Like none.
What year was this?
Or at least most of them have the same haircut you would have.
Exactly. So if there was one, we didn't know.
Yeah.
And like that would have been 90. That would have been 1990.
Yeah. Yep.
So it was funny. So I just one day I said, well, I can draw. I could totally do what they're doing. And I transferred out of engineering and went to fine art without thinking about it.
That's awesome.
Which is it just set a whole tone for my entire life. But like doing that, I never thought ahead that, well, what do you do? I wasn't good enough to be a professional artist. I like girls, so I wasn't going to make it as a painter. And it was this weird thing where I just went, well, these people don't draw cars, but I'll be the great car artist. Yep. I'd seen guys like Stanford. And I thought, these guys can make a living at it. And just kind of picked that up. And at the time, I was working at a dealership. That's how I was getting myself through school. I was working in a parts room. And of all things, I just kind of kept at it, kept drawing on the side. You start a small family. As they're growing, I just had a little bit more time at my day job. So I started reaching out and posting things online. That was back in the days of like MySpace. And fortunately, some people picked up on it, liked what I was doing, and the rest was history. A couple paying jobs came through, and those couple jobs got me to network with some people and put me in touch with some really great people like Tim Strange, Zing from Katati Speed Shop. And those guys kept putting me in front of more and more people, and I was fortunate enough to just parlay that into a day job.
Right.
And it was good enough. It fed 3 kids, raised a decent family. and here we are. I'm 50 years old and still doing the same thing I was doing when I was 8. So.
Dude, it's funny though, because I looked through your website. I've looked at it before, but I hadn't looked at it close and in a while. And so I get on there a couple of days ago, and the day that I had sent you the message, so whatever that was, 2 or 3 days ago, and
Right.
I started looking, and I looked at this car here, and this thing was for Big Oak. If people don't know that shop, they do a lot of cool stuff.
Posey.
Huh?
Mr. Will Posey.
Yes. They do some cool stuff. And I love this rendering because it's really interesting to me. So I'm the kind of person that if you said, you brought up your 69 Chevelle and you described to me what you wanted to do to it or what it looked like, I can absolutely envision it as if it is a photograph in front of me. I am not capable of then drawing that, but I can see it, right?
Right.
So I'm the type of person that if I look at, my
and nobody
Mitsubishi,
can prove them wrong.
Right. I'm the kind of person that looks at my Mitsubishi truck that I just bought today, and I look at that thing, and I know exactly what I want to do to it, and I can see the finished product in my head. But a lot of people are not that way, right? And I found that out when I was building cars.
Because you don't finish anything.
I built cars for a living, dude, for a long time. I built lots of cars for lots of people.
I've heard this.
And so when I would, do that, I found customers had no idea that, they didn't know how to see something in their mind. They literally had to have it on the car. And there are varying levels of that. I mean, I know a guy who literally, if he doesn't bolt the wheel on the car, he cannot envision the wheel on the car.
We know a lot of people like that, though.
Yeah. And so the reason I bring that up is because the average rendering that you see is one like this, right? You got this beautiful green car. It's sitting there. It's this thing. And you see the front and you see the back and it's done. But in this scenario, you have gone to multiple versions of the nose of this car because I'm presuming that the builder said, okay, we know what we want pretty close, but we want the customer to be able to see some options and what have you. So be creative and come up with some stuff. And you have done that. And that's not the normal on renderings. And that is really cool. And for you to go to the detail, interiors, I know that there are guys that do renderings with interiors, but really this is another level of detail that you're going to in this rendering. And it's awesome. I mean, it's really cool.
Thanks, man.
I just think this is a next level deal. So how does the conversation go when you're talking to a client and you're going to do something like this nose? And for everybody that's sitting here looking at this, I hope you're paying attention to the fact that the hood is different in each of these rows as well, right? The hood in the top two is different than the hood in the middle and the hood in the bottom. So it's not just the grill that's different. It's also hood, it's valance or air dam area that's different on this. There's a lot going on in these 6 drawings.
Did you get input from the customer, or were you giving input to the customer?
It started off, they wanted to clean up the front end, and I was just told to come up with something that said Dodge and brought in the split grill. That's all I was left with. So, and taking a car that's, don't get me wrong, they're dear to my heart. I love those little things, but they're so homely.
Oh yeah, they are.
Making any change to that car was a blessing, but it was really tough to find something that worked because it's such a narrow grill when you really get down to it, and trying to find a way. The minute you put a vertical in that thing, everything changes.
Yeah,
like it's taller, it just gets dopier looking.
I gotta tell you, this top left one is so, CUDA, right? Like, and it's just, I mean, and our resident Mopar guy is McTaggart. Like, yeah, you look at that and that just screams Mopar. There's no doubt. You get down here to the bottom left, and like you said, it pulls that modern vertical in as well. But I think I don't think you could have went wrong with any of them.
The great thing I'm looking at with all of this, and you're right, that Air Dart is one of the most homely things they've cranked out.
Yeah.
Period. But did you drop the section of the hood between the headlights, or is that the natural line of the car?
It's dropped just a bit.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, because that adds the aggression. So if you look at the top row, you have Cuda Challenger. The only car you could possibly mistake that for would be a Rambler American, but they're so close in design that
Right.
you can understand that. Everything else about this, you can't mistake it. There's detail.
You know what I find really entertaining about this rendering is that the two-tone on this car, right, accentuates arguably the ugliest part of this car, okay, which is this horrible B pillar at the back. It's just hideous, okay? It's the angle's wrong. Everything about it is wrong, and yet it looks so badass when you do it this way that it's okay. Like, you're a genius, dude, seriously.
That was a group effort too, because it's just such a goofy roof. Nothing on that car works.
Right.
And from the factory, they're so weird. So, and Will had come to me, and he's already in the process of moving wheel wells around, because that once you start to pull the wheel wells a little bit forward and aft to kind of get rid of that overhang, the car looks a little bit better. Right. But it has this really weird kind of like European look to it.
Yeah.
But it's almost like somebody tried to describe it over the phone to somebody who didn't speak the same language. It's like two people trying to figure it out via like sign language or some kind of weird cuneiform. And it's so hard to make that car work. And everything came together. We got lucky. That was a cool car.
Well, let me ask you this. So you bring up moving the wheels. I don't think that the average hot rodder at home realizes just how much gets moved around on these very high-end builds, right? I don't think people realize how much the wheels get moved around, because they're very often in the wrong place in the wheel well from the factory. And that can make a huge difference. I mean, literally as little as a half inch of movement in a front wheel well or rear wheel well can dramatically change the look of the car. But when you go to the point of actually moving the wheel well, that is, so in this rendering here, that front wheel well is forward of stock and the rear is rearward of stock. Yeah. What are some of the other things that are in your drawings and in these high-end designs that people may not realize is happening?
Oh man, I'm a big fan of doing stuff that you don't realize is there at first. Yeah. I love hiding little stuff that when somebody walks around a car for like a half hour and you think you know the whole car and you bring your buddy over to look at it, he finds 5 other things that you did.
Yeah.
Like, I love doing all the stuff that maybe they couldn't do from the factory because of, budget constraints or finished time or anything like that. So little stuff on those cars whether it's changing the wheel opening shape, maybe changing, maybe there's a character line above it. Like in this case, this car has a pretty cool little flare to it from the factory. But if you accentuate that just a bit, now it's got this extra character line that kind of brings your eye back out of the car in what is essentially a really slab-sided, kind of boring design.
Right. Now, and then you mentioned earlier that, you took this section here at the front of the hood and, and dipped that down ever so slightly. I know that there are lots of cars that I've seen built over the years where literally you can't say that the roof has been chopped necessarily, but where they've taken a quarter or a half or a 3/4 of an inch out of the front pillars to just get the nose of the, of the roof to dip down, or vice versa. Right.
Always.
That part of stuff is amazing to me too, that, cause again, you don't realize it when you just see it there, cause it just looks so great. You figure, oh, well, it's still an Impala or it's still a Dart or whatever. You don't realize all those little things that are done. Is it hard to draw those in sometimes if they're that subtle?
Sometimes, yeah. And I'm big on leaving notes behind. That's kind of a thing I stole outright from Harry Bradley. Like, I love putting these little notes in there because people don't recognize that maybe you've done something like you've decrowned the roof slightly. Yeah. Or pancaked it just a bit at the front to kind of give that car a more aggressive shape, or get rid of what looks to be, especially once you chop a top, you know how that works. If it's got too much of a crown to begin with,
Yeah.
anything you take out of those pillars, that roof just gets really, really goofy looking. It looks like a big knot on a forehead.
Yeah. That is just, it's awesome. Like seriously, the stuff you've done is super, super cool.
Thanks.
The interior obviously is cool on these. I mean, that's neat. I do like the notes. The notes are cool. Do you find it more rewarding to do an older body style car and have those tweaks compared to something like this, crew cab Chevy pickup, which, I know that there's a lot going on here, but by comparison, you'd look at this and think of this as more of a simple build, even if it really isn't. It feels like it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's a bolt-on build. Yeah, that's aside from the hood.
Right.
I mean, that would be. And I like that one because it's just fun. Those are kind of fun to do because you get to stretch your brain a little bit and try to come up with a product.
Right.
And I mean, everybody wants to have something on the shelf, that you can go to the store and say, "I designed that."
Right. Well,
But-
and this is, and like, to be fair, this build right here is, was done for Truck and Magazine, or this drawing, right? So how much of your renderings and stuff have been done just to be ideas in a magazine? A lot of them, or?
Wow, that was without like exaggerating, that was probably 6 years of my life.
Really?
Just that stuff. And it was funny because it's not the greatest paying gig,
Right.
but what that brought, like as far as being able to have an even broader portfolio and be able to say to someone, "I'll just go to Barnes and Noble, pick up this issue, and
Yeah.
open that up. There's my work."
Yeah.
That was really cool, and plus it kept your name on it. So it was a lot of times you do work and the name gets dropped. Nobody
Yep.
knows who you are. In those cases, it was like having just that little bit of credibility where you could say, "Hey, a magazine that's got hundreds of thousands of readers wanted my stuff. Here's a chance to reach these people and throw something totally different out there."
Yeah.
And there's a lot of freedom with that too, because you weren't held back by anybody's budget. You weren't held back by a builder's ability. You were just turned loose. I was like, well, if you can dream it, do it.
Right.
And my problem was, though, I'd always be thinking, because I grew up in a shop, so I'm always thinking billable hours. I'm thinking, what's it going to take to make this work? Is this possible? And in the days before like 3D printing and 3D scanning and composites, you were kind of left to whatever the skill level of your employees was.
Right.
So you really had to kind of restrain yourself. Okay, we could build something really radical, but does this guy have, and I remember back at the time, like, man, does this guy have $100,000 to put into a car? I mean, now
Right.
you put $100,000 into a paint job.
Right. Yeah, but that's a good point, because you could do a rendering for a shop that may not be capable of creating that rendering.
Oh yeah, I I did a few of those early, and it taught me pretty well to develop like a series of questions at the beginning. And I had to learn how to phrase it properly, because you don't realize it could be really offensive to a shop owner if you come out and say, "Well, what are you guys capable of?"
Right.
Well, you see in our work, yeah, but what do they want to do? What can they do in their spare time?
Yeah.
And it really helped me out a lot, because I got to know all the guys in the shop that way. And like, you took a shop like, say, like Rad Rides, where Troy had kind of the cream of the crop working for him.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a golden era too, where the talent in that shop, anything you could design, they could build.
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, they do it one step further than you could ever imagine it. So for me, that was like being a kid in a candy shop, where I could turn something over and a guy like Levi would take it and a week later send me a picture. And I'd be like, I never thought it would look that good.
Yeah.
And it's not that I had my doubts in him. I was just like, oh, I designed something that's cool. And you see it in person, you go, well, that's even more badass than I would have done it.
So because of the fact that you're not just an artist, but you're a real car guy, sometimes does it drive you nuts to only get to see pictures of the fab work going on and not see them in person?
Yeah, that sucks. Man, like I said, I grew up around it, so I love everything about being in a shop. Like, there's the sounds, the sights, yeah, the smells. Some not so good, others okay. But
Yeah.
like, you know, that kind of stuff, have that tactile experience is so much cooler. So it drives you nuts sometimes. And especially if you get a builder who's not too good on updating you on pictures,
Right.
you have to bug him and you're like, just send me a picture. Oh, we'll get there. I'm like, just dude, a picture, any picture will do.
Yeah.
And yeah, you finally get them. It's the coolest thing ever. But I mean, and I know what it's going to look like. And I've been around enough cars and spent way too many hours in a junkyard, you know, kind of holding parts and touching cars. So like, I know what they're going to be like in person, but
Yeah.
not being there, that's a whole different thing. Like for instance, Denny's car, that Xbox car, man, I didn't see that car until about 2 years after it was built.
Really?
So it was funny for me because I'd never seen it in person.
Yeah.
And when I first saw it in person, I was like, that was like the greatest moment of my life.
That is awesome.
I'd been on that car for, God, at the time, I think it's like we did like 7 years on that car between design and build.
Really?
And it kept getting pushed off. And it was so far ahead of its time. And then to see that car when it was, you know, finally, I saw it before it went on the block at Barrett Jackson. If that gives you any idea. I mean, that car lived its whole life.
Right.
So it was weird to finally see it. And it's almost, I guess, like finding out you had a kid somewhere and somebody says, here's your kid.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And he's wearing, you know, like a Michael Bolton shirt. And you're kind of like, oh, sad. But no, that was a little cooler. This one was wearing an Iron Maiden shirt, so it was much better. But like, it's kind of cool, you know? I mean, you get to see them in person. And sometimes it's weird to have that gap, too. If you see one that's midway through the build, maybe it's in bare metal, and you don't see it again until it's on a show floor. That's kind of weird because there's a gap missing in your life with it. But
right,
it's always cool to see them come to fruition.
Well, I'm curious on you're saying that, but when you've like designed a car and working with the builder and the client, then had it exceeded your expectations when the car was finalized and you saw it in person?
Oh yeah, quite a few times. Without a doubt, not to keep bringing their name up, but the Rad Rides Torino.
Oh,
that car,
yes.
I mean, it was funny because in my head, I was like, you know, and I was still kind of young at the time. So in my head, I was going, this is the baddest car ever. Nothing's ever going to touch this thing. And when it got done, when I saw it for the first time, it was jaw-dropping for me because it was finished at such a high level. Like in my head, I guess, you kind of start to imagine the car in one way. It like takes on its own personality. I guess maybe this is the only way I could like even begin to think about somebody who's into like cam girls or something, where like maybe you see them one way and you meet them in person and I don't know, maybe it's a letdown. I don't know, but like that car was probably, without a joke, 50 to 60% better than I ever imagined it in my head.
Wow.
The only thing I ever heard Troy say bad about that car is, I am never building a freaking car with no air conditioning and side exit exhaust again in my life. When we were on that Good Guys road tour with him and Poteet. Poteet goes, I don't see any problem with it. Because you're deaf, old man.
I saw that the Torino at the Hot Rod reunion in Bowling Green a number of years ago. And George was there with the car. And the car had sit out overnight. Didn't have a car cover on it. And all the morning dew had collected on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say that was probably one of the most incredible like things I've ever seen. Just
that's one thing about him, though. He drives his stuff.
All of them.
Well, that was the thing too. It's like I talked to George for a good 30 minutes, just about everything automotive, and talking about the car. And he's like, "You want to drive it?" And I'm like, "I would love to, but."
I gotta go clean myself up. Excuse me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm afraid of everyone else around me. It's not that I don't trust myself. It's like I don't trust anybody else, like being even near the car, like on the road. So it's like, this is something that is always stuck in my head that George told me. He's like, it's just a car.
Yep. How and you know, along those lines, like you brought up Troy and obviously Troy's relationship with George is, you know, well known, and George has been a patron of so many hot rod shops and has helped. And I say a patron, and I mean that in the sense that not only to have places build him cars, but also help them at another level to succeed as viable shops.
Give them an opportunity to get a little farther along.
Yes, because what the public probably doesn't know, and I'm not going to get into particulars, but what the public probably doesn't know is that the vast majority of George's cars that are built in the shop's downtime. They very rarely have like actual set dates for completion. And he helps them by doing these high-end projects that they can use as filler as well. So there's no downtime, I guess is the way I'd put it. And Troy, I believe that Troy Rad Rides has and always will be one of the finest car builders in the country. They made an industry go to a level it had never been at before.
Right.
And that's not a dig of anybody before, but my God, and there are companies that exist today that wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him. Companies that now build cars at that level that never would have even started, right? Like the Roadster shop, those guys never would have even gotten into building chassis that they do if it wasn't for being inspired by, guys like Troy. So to me, that's a really big deal. But for you, it's got to be awesome when somebody, when Troy calls and says, hey, draw me up a car because George wants to build this. You have to love that because you know that there is no budget. Like that, and I don't mean that to be bad. Like that just means that anything that they want to do is possible. There isn't a limitation on the time or the money or any of that it takes to do it. That has to make you really excited.
Well, it's intimidating too. Like, a car like that, I almost turned that job down because I hate 68 and 69 Torinos.
Me too.
I just never liked them. Like, to me, they were always goofy and weird. And when he first mentioned it, he says, I want to do this car. It's going to be a NASCAR theme. And oh, Christ. I was like, two things I'm not really into.
Yeah.
And when he said it's for George, I went, all right. And he says, you can do whatever you want, fix whatever you want on that car. So the very first thing I did was I was like, well, I'm getting rid of the stupid tiny little wheel openings. We're going to get rid of all these other things on the car. And since it had to be a Talladega, I just remember as a kid, I was really into like scale models.
Yeah.
I was really into kit bashing and customizing stuff. And I built a tubbed out Talladega. And the thing that always bothered me about the car, as neat as it was, the front end had so much overhang. It was just such a goofy looking car.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So we were trying to find a way to bring the Talladega look to the Torino without stretching the nose like that extra 8 inches.
Yeah.
And when we hit on how to do that, I got so excited about this car. I don't think I worked on anything else for like 3 weeks solid. I ate everything. This car was like my life. And I had thrown a bunch of concepts out there and little things got changed because I think they were a little too far out there. But when we finally came back around, the only thing I had a disappointment for at first, I was like, I really wanted the car to be orange. In my head, the first drawings I did of this car were a bright orange.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be so cool, it'd be so out there. And at the time, George didn't have another orange car.
Right.
And he does now. Now he's got the Dave Lane built that coupe.
Yeah.
But like, at the time I was like, oh, this would be so cool because I always thought like that whole era of like the grabber cars and stuff like that would have been so neat to pull in one of those colors. And when I kept coming back to, it's got to be like Blowfish. And again, like you said, when you see a car in person the first time, I saw the spray outs for this. And I remember I kind of went, oh, well, they turned my Mona Lisa into Tammy Faye Baker,
Right.
And this thing, it was so much cooler in person. And I don't think there could have been a better color for it.
Right.
And even as a designer, you feel like your toes are stepped on at first because, you know everything. You're the designer. But like that, it couldn't have been a better color for the car. Although I always hear from every person, and we could open up a whole different can of worms with this, but everybody always remembers that car in bare metal.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it made a big splash in bare metal.
Oh, yeah. And everybody, that's why I always have a hard time showing somebody a car that's unfinished. Because you always remember it that way. You're always like, oh, it's that guy is the El Camino that was in primer.
Yeah.
You never remember it any other way. It could be the greatest finished car ever. And you're just like, that car was a Bondo bucket in primer. You're like,
yeah.
That's just funny. So weird.
So, McTaggart, you got any questions? Crosby, any questions for Stupsky? I don't want to steal all the,
when I saw that Talladega at the Grand National, it was in bare metal. Yes, it looked like it was finished, but you could tell what it was going to look like when it was done. That was the cool part about it.
Yeah.
But
I agree with you on that. I saw it there,
I
too.
think that's a good thing about a compliment to you and to Troy, because the car, all the little details on the car that made them ugly originally were gone on that car.
Yeah.
And there were so many people over there staring at it, trying to figure out why it was so much different. That's what was cool about it. When you can make people stare at something for hours, yeah, that's the way to do it.
That's always the cars I love the most
welcome.
are the ones you look at for a long time and you think, like you said earlier, Brian, that you've got every single thing that was done. I know. I saw it all. And then the next time you see it, there's 10 other things. I mean, that's just, yeah.
I love it. That was my favorite part. Is again. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, growing up, like, going to car shows, like, you go to like the indoor autoramas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
My favorite things to look at, especially, which is weird now because I'm not a bike guy, but like the choppers were my favorite thing because those were the kind of things where you'd find a detail even after looking at it for like forever. You could go back to it later that day and you're like, oh, I didn't pick this up before. It has this cool shape. And I always try to bring that back to these because I want somebody to have that same experience. Yeah, because I mean, cars are cool, but I think the experience of cars is cooler.
Yeah, I agree. It is the journey, not the not the destination. It's the same deal. You're on a drag and drive event. You're on Power Tour. You're on any of that. You don't talk about being in the pit, or you're being on the racetrack, or finally getting your display set up. You talk about the stories you have with your friends of the dumb stuff you did or the crazy thing that happened or whatever.
Exactly.
I'm amazed we're still alive after that.
Exactly. That is so true.
So
all the best stories start out like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've just got a couple questions, couple minor ones. Basically, I grew up. So my time frame, you're about 10 years older than me, 15 years older than me, give or take, something like that.
That hurts, man. That hurts. I'm 22.
Yeah, he tells me that all the time too. So yeah, you and I are the same age.
The thing is that I grew up in that time frame where it was folks like you and Tom and others who were putting these killer renderings into magazines, and that's where you get people like me who've been inspired to.
I think it's funny you think you grew up.
Whatever.
I just want to stop you for a second, and I want to say you made my whole career right there, man. Dude, I'm gonna choke up. Like, to think that like you put me on a plane, like that I inspired somebody, dude. Thank you.
Not a problem. I mean,
do you not? I mean, seriously, do you
that's
not
mind blowing,
know
dude.
That's the case? Like, I know.
I don't visit myself as a writer or a host. It's the same thing. You don't see yourself as it. Somebody has to tell you.
Yeah, that's true. No,
I mean,
well, but Stupsky, I hope you know, like, and I know I've told you this before, but like, I knew who you were before I knew who you were, right? Like, I knew your work, but I had no idea. I'm like,
I knew your work, but I didn't know who you were.
Yeah, and then when you and I met,
are you disappointed now? No.
Oh, dude, yeah, the cars are way better than you are.
No, I'm actually more impressed now than I was before.
For me,
take that however you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit.
For me, I always like. I mean, I'm not going to say I loved every car you ever designed, but I loved your drawings. Generically speaking, I saw them in the magazines or whatever. But I didn't know you. It was, I mean, a jillion years later. I mean, we've known each other for, I don't know. We've probably known each other for 15 years now because we're old in it, and it seems like it. But the thing is that even when I met you then, It was like, oh yeah, it's cool. And I knew little things you did. It wasn't until later that I start to realize all the things that I knew you did before I knew you did them. You know what I mean? And it sounds funny to say that, but it's true. And I mean, I grew up, you and I are the exact same age. And so you still, even then, you were inspiring me to go, oh my God, I would love to be able to build something like that. And I can tell you that the skill level that I have today from a fabrication standpoint or whatever is higher than, even though I don't do it nearly as often as I did before. I'm still better at it now because of all the things I've learned from other people over the years. Right.
Totally.
But what, for me, the thing that's inspiring about that is that I am more capable of building something that's cooler than
This
I
is
was
the same.
before. You know,
The guy that's talking right now is the same person. I have a picture of him MIG welding in flip flops. So
oh yeah,
take
all
it.
the time. Yeah.
But
So the why not? It's the best shoe. You only have 2 choices for shoes when welding, and 99% of people, even professionals, wear all of it wrong. So I'll give you that one later. Flip flops are absolutely one of the best things to weld in.
Japanese motorcycle boots.
Yes, it's exactly right. You are 100% right. Everything else is wrong. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to go on is, and I'm sure this is going to wake Chad right up. It is renderings like this where it's something you never looked at and never thought of and never, I wouldn't have given thought to a bullet bird like what we have here at all.
Because I don't like them. I don't like T-birds, period. But a bullet bird, to me, is that one and the next one. I'm like, but this is badass.
That's the thing. And Chad will definitely back me up on the fact that I am into the weirdest, wildest shit there is. The most randomized thing, yeah.
Because of his age, it's not his fault. I keep telling myself
it's not his fault.
But but he is. He's into weird era shit because it's what he grew up with, you know.
So the man who just dragged a Ram 50 home, shut up. No, but the thing is,
I'm glad you said it.
I had to. Well,
it's so good
with
though.
With the catalog that you've got, what haven't you drawn that you still look at and you go, maybe?
I want a picture of Chad sitting in said D50.
Oh,
it's going to look like a wrap.
I'll do that on Sunday.
We can do that.
Yeah. Okay, but answer the question though, Brian. What is something that you haven't drawn that you'd love to have drawn? Or that you look at going down the road and you're like, man, I could fix that.
I'll tell you, this can sound so stupid. Some of my dream cars, like I'd love to do an AMC Eagle. I have so many ideas in my head for one of those.
I agree. That's scary, but I agree.
I love those. I have a thing for Fieros, and not like as a kid car, but like just IMSA style, like badass, evil.
That would be cool. That would be cool.
Love to do one of those.
Badass Fiero. That's like military intelligence.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Freiburger's good idea.
Yeah, exactly.
It could happen.
It could happen.
It'd take some real talent to pull that one off.
I'd probably have to hire somebody to do that one.
Yeah, I was gonna say you'd have to pay a lot of money to somebody. Okay, but what are some of the other ones?
I have a thing for the Rampage. Little Dodge Rampages.
Yep.
Those little pickups. Mm-hmm. I love those cars, and I think I like the Charger from that era even more.
Okay, I know the one that's like the little Daytona,
the little Omni
fastback. Yeah,
the little Omni 2+2.
Yes.
Yeah, those. I had a buddy in high school that had one of those. We had great memories in those, and I just remember always looking at the car. It's got to be the single headlight though.
Yeah.
But like one of those has so much potential, and they just seem like they're virtually untapped. But anytime you find one, they're roached. Like there's nothing.
One guy who has built one. And he he actually backdated it. It was an original Shelby from '87. He backdated it to a '78 Charger 2+2, painted it teal, rear drive converted it with a Buick V6. Oh, it's a bad little bastard, but the one, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah, nobody does them. It's one of those weird cars.
So let me ask you a question while I'm looking at this. I don't. And a lot of people hate me for this. I don't like Monte Carlos, except this body style of Monte Carlo. I grew up with one of these. We had this a 72 Monte Carlo, but every Monte Carlo that came after this, even the G bodies, I don't like them at all. Okay, but these were amazing. But I'm going to use this car as another example because this thing is super badass and you definitely move the wheel wells around and stuff. But let me ask you this question. In the modern era of, building muscle cars and hot rods, and Troy may have started this and it may have come a little later. Foose, I know, is big on it too. Factory body lines, like the body line, that you can feel on the side of this car and clearly see in the drawing. The trend now is to sand those to an incredibly razor sharp line, right? And there's two reasons why they never were that way to begin with. And number one is that the technology wasn't there to have stamped a line that was that crisp without some real number of them cutting through, right? And number two was that even if you did, the consistency of that line would not have been good enough, right, on a car. So those lines are never that crisp in real life. I like that crisp line on some builds, and on other builds, I feel like it's not the way it should go if the car looks more stock or what have you. What do you think?
This is where it gets weird. Like on a car like that, because I grew up with these, and I had a 72 for a long time, and like my mom had a 75, so I kind of fell in love with that. My sister had a 76, so you can see there's a trend here.
Yeah.
And
you're an A-body family.
Oh yeah, we were. But the funny part is I'm a Mopar guy at heart, so that's a whole other thing. But like that whole thing, like finishing cars to that level, I get it, because it's a point then where, especially at that level, it's about craftsmanship.
Right.
I think it's showing what you're capable of. And I think if money's no object, spending another 40, 50 hours on the side of a car, making each one of those lines perfectly crisp and line up, that's a cool thing. And I like seeing that because that's taken to the ultimate extreme.
Right.
But part of me is still like, having been around it and having washed them and waxed them and, bang dents out of them, like I'm so used to the way that they look and feel.
Yeah.
And it's alien to me to almost look at a car that's finished at that level. Because I never had anything that was finished near that level.
Right. And for the people at home that may not know, like I'm going to use this body line here, as the example, but if you look here at this body line here, they would literally lay a line of tape. Okay. After they did, skim coat of filler and or, high build primer, etc. After doing tons of metal filing and lots of metal work to get it sharp, the final bit they would do by putting a tape line perfectly mirroring that body line and then sanding from the top up to that tape line. And they would do that until it looked perfect. Then they would peel the tape off, put the tape on top of the line, and do the same thing on the bottom until they get that thing just dead on. Because if you accidentally go over the top of that thing all the way with this, sandpaper, then you build that edge, and that doesn't matter whether it's made out of metal, lead, whether it's steel, aluminum, lead, filler, high build primer. All of it, if that edge is that sharp, it takes nothing to, take the top off of it. So,
but Chad, on that deal, something like this Monte Carlo, I think that real sharp edge plays in because there are so many other square edges on it.
I agree.
But if there's something more round or has a little more bulbous features to it, that doesn't work as well.
I got you. Yeah, I would agree.
It kind of looks out of place.
Yep.
But on the Monte Carlo, it fits because it has so many other technically square edges on it, like the straight line of the bumper, around the window openings and stuff, have so many squared off edges that it flows with the car.
But look at the ass on that thing. That's great.
Mm-hmm. It's
a little bridge
like Doc from Street Outlaws copied this. He's like, when he's having his Monte Carlo built, he's like, I want it to sit like this because
Yep.
I mean, like his car, it has an incredible stance,
Right.
Oh,
that body, but it's like seeing this, it's like yeah, I could kind of see like where it comes from.
Well, Doc's building another one, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a Mopar guy, then this is
There it
awesome.
is.
This is awesome. I remember this thing, and it is the Atona, right? And if you don't
It's so
know,
fun.
Dodge vans were A's. This would have been an
The full
A100
control vans.
is what it would have been if it was a full van. I don't know what the number or whatever was when it was a pickup truck one, but awesome.
100, I think.
What did you say?
I think it was A100 van, A108 for the truck.
that's what I think
Okay.
it
I
was.
think you're right.
Yep, there you go. That is
Same thing as a
awesome.
little red wagon for other people out there.
This is cool because the Charger vents put into the door is cool because they would have been on the Daytona, obviously. There is a lot here that makes
I like
it
the
feel
roll
right.
pan.
Do
Thanks.
The roll pan in the front.
Yeah.
And what looks like a 71 Charger grill.
Yep.
I'm not getting that wrong, but that's close.
Yep, and that was because I was trying to find a way to put something in there, and I didn't want to do hidden headlights on that thing.
Right.
And God, I remember I always refer to this as the flu car. My youngest had the flu something fierce, and I could like draw this thing at like literally 3 minutes at a time between running into the bathroom.
We've all been there.
I hope I didn't ruin that for you. It was almost brown, so
That's awesome.
that was.
So let me ask you this, like on something like this, do you
Hey, Chad,
use...
did you notice what he left in the drawing?
What do you mean?
One thing we both like. That's
Oh,
still
vent
in
window.
it. Yeah.
It's got a vent window. Yes, there are a lot of cars that should have a vent window,
Mhm.
and this is one of them.
You know what's funny though is I left the vent window there because this is a case of overthinking it. This is just a dream car I did for I think Truckin' Magazine,
Yeah, it is.
and it was funny because when I was doing it, I thought, oh, if I put those vents in the door, I've got to move the hinges a little bit. And if I move the hinges, I can't have a full drop down window.
Right.
Well,
and I started thinking, I got to leave a vent
you and I
window
are
there.
the same person, because if this didn't have the vent window in it, then in my brain I'd be like, well, that's stupid because the door is so short over the wheel well, so it makes sense to only have a small piece of glass there because it's only going to go down that far. And if you had, I know you wouldn't have, but if you had the wheel well up too high in this to where the space from the fender to the door was not enough for a window, I would be pissed. I literally would be that guy. I'd be that guy that was like, oh, that can't ever work. You know, I wouldn't say anything to you, but I'd bitch to everybody else that would listen.
I were trying to figure out how you'd have to put the pedals in this because I was like, man, you have to be built like a spider.
Oh yeah,
you'd have to have super long legs or move the pedals way up, and
pedals that pop up out of the floor at you.
Yeah,
exactly right. Or hand controls. It was so weird.
So we have a friend that has an A100 van of this era. That's cool. And obviously it's not to this extreme. It's much more traditional, cool build, but it's fun. And he's like, I'm talking about Jack McTaggart, and you know, Pine is like, I don't know. I bet he's 6'2" or 3 or something. I mean, he's a fairly tall guy. So, you know, and he's kind of in that thing like this, you know, but he loves his van. It's rad. You know,
it almost have to be like a tea bucket.
Yeah, a little bit. And
Exactly.
I hate tea buckets. Tea buckets are horrible pieces of crap.
No, because you got to remember that those have their rear windows, so it gives you a little bit more room in the back of the cab.
That's true because it curves away from you.
It wraps.
Yeah. Yep. It makes the back wall of the cab way further back than you'd think. Let me ask you one other question I was wondering about. So I'll use the Monte Carlo as the example. So do you use physical models of the car or just a jillion pictures in front of you to look at while you're drawing, or
okay. It's funny.
Do you get like dimensional drawings or
on stuff like this? Here's the funny part. Like I'll go and I'll look up like a car like this. I know about like the back of my hand.
right.
A lot of times I'll I'll grab 80 or 90 different reference pictures so I know,
Okay.
what the grill looks like, what kind of
Yeah.
lights are on the thing, what the texture is on the marker lamps, for instance.
Yeah.
And then it's just, I should show you, I just draw. And like this kind of stuff, like for a t-shirt thing that I'm working on, I don't know if you can see this okay. We'll try to.
Oh, yeah.
So like these, I just sketch these out. They're just, I take it and, they might say, oh, I need a Pro Mod Camaro. I need, this is so weird to be doing this. It feels like show and tell.
Are you drawing right now?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm being super nice to you. No, I drew this just now.
Yeah.
Like t-shirt stuff like this.
Yeah.
That like doesn't exist. You come up with like the Tahoe.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something really dated, so it's got like the 01 roll pan.
Yeah,
the
I
01
saw
wheels.
that. Exactly. Dude, me and Wickman are like, yes, we want that. Yes.
Well, you like it because the license plate I put on it says Hovet. So
Nice.
if you're going to name it. But like, I tend to draw better kind of on my own. Like if I have 5 or 6 references and I'm so used to drawing, again, like this is a little different for me because it's a different angle. But 9 times out of 10, I was so used to, as a kid, having like a scale model or a Hot Wheels car sitting on the table in front of me, which is why I do that kind of top-down 3/4 look. It's just the way I see every car in my head. So when I'm talking to a client and they say, oh, we're going to do, say, like a 70 CUDA, in my head, I picture it literally sitting on the table in front of me. And so I start with the George Trostley technique. You draw a little 3-point box and just start fleshing it out from there and cut away everything that's, not a CUDA. And it's just, I've always been better drawing freehand. I know a lot of guys will start with a 3D model. I learned, it took me years to figure this out over this. I could have saved so much time on t-shirt art. People are like, oh, just trace an existing car. And we're going, too late now. But it's like, especially in a case like this Roadrunner, that was a case where, again, little stuff that didn't exist on the factory Roadrunner is so much easier to just draw in a pencil sketch and then redraw it in Adobe Illustrator because it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine you're not going to go online and Google, I need a 74 Roadrunner, but it's got to have 71 GTX front fender reveals on it, so they match the rears and all this stuff. It's just easier for me to go, I'm just going to draw it.
Yeah.
Now, when you say you use go from pencil to Adobe, are you using like a flatbed scanner, or are you just basically completely redrawn?
What I do is I'll scan in my drawing. I'll scan it. And if I'm too lazy to walk the 20 feet to the scanner, what I'll do is I've set up a rig on my desk where I can just put my phone on it and it holds it perfectly parallel to my working surface.
That's awesome.
Snap a picture, bring that into Adobe Illustrator as the bottom layer, and just with the pen tool, start redrawing it.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome because you are combining. See, now that I really love. You are combining the most traditional method, right? Which is, a pencil. Because a pencil drawing is just the modern version of a charcoal drawing, which would have been the very first ways they ever drew in history, right? And so if you take that and you go then to using the latest technology to then bring all the realism to it, that's just, to me, that's awesome. Like, that's cool. Because not to take anything away from the people that only do digital drawings, but the truth of the matter is, I feel like when I know I can't do this. These people still have a lot of talent. But if you take somebody that is really talented at this, but changing the weight of a line is just them doing it by clicking the button, that's not the same as you changing the weight of the line by using, your pencil different. You know what I mean?
I'll send you something later. I'll show you just the way I do that. And every one of those lines isn't just one stroke. Right. I draw the entire outline of the stroke so I can move it all around later. And it's super dumb and time consuming, but later on it pays off. Yeah. Especially if I feel like I have to move something. Like there's times you're looking at one thing for so long and you think you've got it dead on and you walk away, you get lunch. You come back, you go, oh crap! And like in this case here, there's something so far out of proportion on this car. I'm not even going to point it out. But like, I made it work because I stretched a lot of other stuff to make it kind of cartoony.
Right.
But there's little stuff that like you can correct later on. You can kind of go back and push the nose back a little bit.
Right.
You realize that if this car were realistic from the perspective it's drawn in, I mean, if I were my own teacher back then, I'd kick my ass. But like that front end would be 10.5 feet wide. This car would be.
Right. Yes, that's true. And because of that, you literally couldn't drive this car into any driveway on Earth. Like, yeah. Well, but here's an interesting thing, and you know this because you've done a lot of work for the OEs as well, is that when you see a rendering of a new car, it has a lower stance and a bigger wheel and tire on it than it will ever come with, even at its best level, right?
Oh, yeah, always.
A lot of the cars that you see at the auto shows from the OEs are also not at stock height. They also are using a bigger wheel and tire in some. If you can't walk up to it and read the sidewall, then there is a chance that is not the wheel and tire you think it is. That car comes with a 20 and it's got a 21 or 2 on it. It's an inch lower or a half an inch. Like those things matter a ton in how stuff really looks, which is why literally every single car on Earth looks better if you just take it and lower it. It automatically looks better,
Always.
So there's so much.
Oh, sorry. I was going to just because that's the way it's designed. Yeah, it's the only way you know it.
Yeah. Well, this thing is cool. I don't care if the nose would be 10 feet wide. I think McTaggart loves this thing, I'm guessing, right?
Chad, that was easy. That was low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Dude,
he would own
fish
this
in a
thing
barrel.
in a second.
No, I'm just sitting here. I went and clicked and like, oh, he doesn't take new clients.
It's a good thing he's not on computer right now.
He does take new
Give me a
clients.
shout. We'll talk. That's up there because I was busy.
Well, it's
Real
like
talk.
today's version of Daisy Duke's car from.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah.
it is.
And
true.
that's funny because that's where I was starting to go with that car. And that was one of those dream cars. And just to touch back on what you said before about stance and everything, like a lot of these renderings like these, the dream cars and stuff like that, that I always consider those to be kind of the flash drawings where all you're trying to do is inspire somebody to build something badass.
Yes.
So you make it lower than possible. This, like, with its 26-inch wheels on it, probably. Yeah. It's dumb, but it just looks right and cool. And it sets that tone.
Well, and this is not, and like if, again, go to problemchildcustoms.com, and you can see everything of Brian's. But
I need to update that.
This thing is, this thing was not designed for anybody in particular. This is a self-promotion, as you have it listed here. This is just you doodling and deciding you're inspired by something and you wanted to draw something cool that other people will enjoy. Nobody paid you to draw this.
No, I was just out there to hopefully inspire somebody because I love the fuselage cars. So that's my favorite era.
That's why I dig this, because generally when people want to go for a fuselage car, they go 71, 72. The early cars, the ones that have the tunnel bumper nose, the ones that have the tucked in small rear bumpers. 73, 74, you're still in the ballpark, but this is where you start getting into bumper regs, and not as much. The most of the body's still there. Charger, Roadrunner, doesn't matter. But you have to have that kind of kick-in-the-ass inspiration before you start looking at a car like that and going, no, that could be good. Even the best 74 Roadrunner doesn't really strike you initially. You have that tape stripe, which, that at least stuck around. But then you have the weird headlight setup, the bumper kind of lost a little bit of the flavor. You have the marker lights where they're sticking out, stuck to the body instead of the smooth 71 style where they're flush to the body.
The only thing Dodge ever did right for me, like above everybody else, was the best marker lights until 1972, and they threw it all away. I'm like, dude, either the most perfect little tiny dot that was actually a, Pentastar, which made it even cooler, or perfectly flush before anybody did flush marker lights.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and then
Totally.
out the window. They went backwards, the Q8s.
But the thing is that if you go looking, you can find a 73, 74 Roadrunner or Charger easy money.
Yeah.
I mean, those are still fairly affordable cars. But when you look at, you know, you're going to find one, it's, well, what do you do with it? It's going to be banana cream yellow with a brown interior. You're going to look at it and go, well, shit.
Yeah.
And where do you start? See something like that, and you suddenly have a build plan in place. You may not like the color. Maybe you want blue. Maybe you want green. But whatever.
Right.
You have something to run off with. And it's that creativity and that kind of inspiration that really, it's the kick in the ass people need that they don't realize they need.
Chad, check your messenger.
Here's the thing about this car that for me is special and can only happen in this era of car, and I never even thought about it till this drawing right here. So on like a 66 Bel Air wagon, a 69 Camaro even, which are better than a lot, there's no room between the nose of the car and the core support. It's inches, right? There are, you know, and the grill, I mean, you can't stack more stuff in there besides the radiator and, you know, an AC condenser and a couple of coolers. You're out of space, right? But these era of cars had a lot more room from the front of the grill to the core support, which means
that takes us back to that Monte Carlo too.
Yep.
Remember how much room they had?
They're huge,
Yeah.
but this
the old
car
Darrell Waltrip
sucking the Monte Carlo has the nose that sticks out past the fenders.
Mm-hmm.
This one, having it sunk back, is a game changer. Like, it's so exaggerated in this drawing here. But dude, I'm looking at this and thinking about other cars in my head now that I'm like, oh my God, if you shortened up the hood like exaggeratedly, wow, you could make a statement. It would be awesome. Like, that's what's cool about this car right here, you know?
I'm suddenly thinking mid-70s Lincoln Marks. I mean, that thing, you smoking children in front of that.
Oh, yeah.
Cut off, what, 20, 25, 30 inches of nose? Cut that up a little bit. 800 pounds.
Yeah.
Chad,
Okay,
check your
Crosby,
messenger.
Yeah, I just did. So Crosby sent me a picture
Look
that
at
he
the
wants me to share.
look at the markers. Or well, where the markers
Well, hold
should
on.
go.
Let me share this one. Let me go. We're gonna go to a different spot.
Pardon the wheels, but
oh yeah. Well, it was during the build. So okay, so this is a Challenger
70 Challenger, which has all Hellcat stuff under it.
Oh, that's right.
The 68 style markers.
But look,
I love the Champ 500 wheels. That
you like that?
God, I love those wheels. But
Those
hey,
were just a
rollers I
placeholder.
could find.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got the 68 style markers, the buttons.
Yep.
Yep.
We wanted markers, so that's what we did.
To make them smaller and cleaner. That's awesome.
Nice.
And that has the independent suspension under the rear of it.
Yes.
And it's not, the car is not widened. The suspension is
narrowed.
7 inches narrower.
Yep.
What's the IRS out of?
Out of that Hellcat.
Hellcat.
The whole thing is Hellcat. The entire drivetrain and suspension in the car is, the front end is a custom IFS from TCI, but the drivetrain and the rear suspension is all straight out of the Hellcat. The guy that owns this car bought one of those pallets that had the front end, the rear end, the engine, the trans, the computer, all of that together. It's all there. So that's basically how he.
Been narrowed because the first one was the dude who built the SRT 8 Murata, the one that was basically stuck under. It was a Charger floor plan underneath a Murata, and he went to the trouble of narrowing all of it. The amount of work in that is monstrous.
Yeah,
it's insane. That's why, because what people don't understand is that when you look at this Challenger here, like normal people think, oh, well, it's a 60s car or 70s car. It's got to be so big. This car is significantly smaller than a current model, like by inches in length and width and height, like inches. It's crazy.
Well, it's 7 inches narrower than a new car, and it's 9.5 inches shorter than a new car.
There you go. And So here's the one thing too that people may not know. If you look at a 6th gen, current Camaro compared to a 5th gen, which is the one that came out in 2010 until 2014 or whatever it was, that if you put the two of those next to each other, the 6th gen is considerably smaller. Okay. The 5th gen was much bigger. The 6th gen, they actually came in because they used a different chassis under it, a different platform. They were actually able to shrink that car down significantly to where the dimensions on it are really, really close to a 69 Camaro, which is, kind of incredible in the modern era.
And you still can't see past the 8-pillar.
Yeah, exactly.
A convertible and figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's cool. This color was great on this car too, because it just
Awesome.
It makes such a good use of all the factory body lines in this thing.
And that thing is static too. It's no air on it.
Yeah.
4-wheel independent with coilovers.
And who painted it?
Candy Creations in Phoenix.
Yep. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Same guy that painted Mark Allen's car.
Yep. Yeah, that's cool.
I thought he was just a truck guy.
Nope.
Yeah, that thing's pretty. Okay, so back to Brian's pictures, because I don't care. I'm in love and I can't stop. I can't stop.
He's got a man crush.
Looking at these. Well, I mean, it's just such good shit to talk about.
I should send you to a different site with more stuff, but
well, let me tell you that what's funny about this one. Okay, so this, call me a liar, but this is the front end of a 69 Camaro. It looks like. Oh no, it says it's a 70 Cuda. Okay, I was gonna say it's either a Cuda or it's a 69 Camaro, but I was gonna love it if it was a 69 Camaro with a Hemi in.
Yeah, that was cool.
I mean, in real life, that would annoy me, but in the drawing, I love it.
Why'd you put a Hemi in it to piss everybody off?
Yeah, exactly. Because it fit.
Who would put a Hemi in a Chevy? Come on.
Yeah.
I would, just to make people mad.
Totally.
Why'd you put a Hemi in it? Well, I had a Hemi.
Because I can.
Okay, I love this gauge drawing that you've done here, because the bottom, I mean, the top is like a fancy and cool version of, stock, right? Obviously. Right. It's supposed to look like GM did it or whatever. But the bottom with the colored numbers is on the speedometer is rad. Like, that is great. The only thing that I would say that I would do different is that I would make the colors instead would be whatever the descriptors are from Spaceballs. So like 140 would actually be plaid. Like, I don't know what color Holy Moly is, but I want that one too.
The make it all the way up to 200, but the zero should be the Moon Eyes eyeballs.
Yeah, exactly.
This
Just get a little LED gauge right about 130, 140.
This got me thinking about the fade on the
Ludicrous.
numbers. Okay, if you go back to the rendering, the rear 3/4 shot of the Monte Carlo.
Right.
Okay. Now, are the taillight colors? Do they fade,
say,
or is it just the way? Because that just gives me a killer idea. I mean, if you could do like some type of acrylic where you can actually fade the colors, then like backlight them. I mean, I haven't seen anything like that before. That's pretty damn trick.
I actually know people that mold their own taillight lenses and stuff, and I've actually seen how they do that. And now that you say that, I bet you there's a way to do that by.
Well, there's a way to do that with LEDs too.
Well,
Exactly.
that's true. That's true. With just LEDs, you could do that. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of what year.
What
I think
were
I
you
drew
saying?
that in 07 or 08, and my original idea was to do like LEDs behind it or do just a Euro style taillight, because I'd never seen one done on those.
And by Euro style, you mean red, yellow, and white, as opposed to just being all red. So for those that don't know, in Europe, the turn signal has to be yellow. It's a requirement. So like a C4 Corvette, in Europe, the taillight or the taillight brake lights are not a solid lens that's red. They literally are like 3/4 of the circle is red and the other quarter is white or yellow. Or no, not white on that one because it has the big reverse
amber,
lights next
yeah.
to the plate.
Yeah.
But it's just
First
amber on the
lenses,
bottom.
but one lens has an amber instead of a
Yeah.
clear.
Correct. Yep. That's
What
cool.
are you talking about?
I like that.
What were you going to say earlier, McTaggart?
Well,
You were going off on.
Yeah, you started to say something
You
else
started
too
to
while
say
we
something.
all opened our mouths at the same time.
Yeah.
oh, something about export taillights. That is something that because people pay stupid money for them, like 4th gen Camaros with the turn signal at the arrow point of the tail
Oh
light.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
true. Yes, I forgot about those, dude.
99 2000 Cobra Mustang where you get the amber at the bottom with the brake light.
Yep.
Yeah.
That I honestly I didn't know that was if that was a happy accident or what, but the idea of doing a kind of pseudo export taillight was killer.
Yeah, I think so too. That's pretty awesome.
Well, one of the first cars that actually got the Euro style taillights on both sides of the pond was the 3rd gen 3rd gen Camaro from the 80s.
Oh yeah. You're right.
79 through what 81 or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the 82
Okay.
to 92.
What you're saying?
Oh yes, I got
Because
you. The
the
late
80
2nd gen. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. That
Yeah,
had a
good.
tail light that was sort of like the 3rd gen. You're
Yeah.
right. I know the
Uh-huh.
one you're talking about now. That's right.
Because Mustang 2, 3rd generation, 2nd gen Camaro, the rubber bumper cars.
Yep. Valerie, who is a 3rd gen woman, as we well know, says yes, 82 to 92. So, we've talked about all these renderings. We've shown the, the t-shirt stuff, and all that. You've done, event posters and, packaging design is even on your list. You know what I mean? What's the thing that's nearest and dearest to your heart? Like, do you love the renderings more than doing logos and other goofy stuff or what?
Yeah, the renderings are always fun because it's so much more of a challenge. Lately I've been taking the t-shirt work to a slightly higher level, which is a lot more fun too, because it's really bridging that style between my renderings and much more graphic,
Right.
the looser stuff. And especially now that printing technology is really starting to come a long way, you can play a whole lot more with screen print stuff.
So let me ask you on that. What do you think? This is going to seem out there in left field, maybe to some people, but because you've done a lot of this, now there's printing directly to garment or direct print to garment, whatever you call it.
Right.
Where literally they use, if people don't know it, it works best on cotton. But anyway, they spray a shirt with a adhesion promoter, then they put it in a printer and it literally inkjet prints the t-shirt. And then you put it in a press that cooks it, so to speak. That's the super dumb version. And then the shirt's done. And it can do photographs perfect. The detail is insane. But they have not typically been as durable, to wear all the time and wear out kind of thing. But the technology is coming a long way. So since you've been involved in t-shirts so much, what do you think? Do you still think screen print is the jam, or is direct printing catching it or passing it, or what?
I think direct to garment definitely has its place. Like I said, the longevity isn't there. It's perfect for short runs. If you're going to do just a handful of shirts, you can't beat it because the setup time and everything involved for a screen print far exceeds the value for doing say a handful 20 shirts.
Right.
It's just not worth it. By all means, I think in a few years they'll probably have it down. It's just going to be a matter of getting the right ink technology.
Yeah.
And again, like you said, there's only certain kinds of shirts you can print on. And for a long time, you can only do certain colors. It had to be a white, a cream, or just a weird some strange, very light blue or
Right.
pinks, because there were no light pigments that would work. But I mean, I was brought up around screen printing, so it's kind of dear to my heart. I like the process, and I even like the smell of the inks.
Right.
I don't like having to clean a screen or reclaim one, but I prefer that technology, and there's guys out there that are wizards at it. I
Right.
mean, and one of the coolest things about that, what got me into that printing, again, when I went from engineering to fine art, you had to take printmaking classes. And
Oh, I gotcha.
For me, screen printing was cool because that just took me back to something I love, which is gig posters, like rock concert posters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Super inspiring to me as a kid. And you can see it in a lot of my work. But like that kind of stuff really turned me on, and it's kind of neat to see the technology progress. I mean,
Right.
like we're at the point where like dye sublimation, where basically you're just burning inks into the fabric where you can't even feel it on a shirt. All that stuff's super cool. But
what what do you typically get? Like, I know this is the Brothers C10 show, so let's just say, I know you've been doing this for a long time for them, so they call you and say, hey, make a new shirt this year, and we'd like to have this kind of truck on it, and maybe a couple others you choose, whatever. You already have a background with them. They probably give you very little direction. But when the first time you ever did this, what's the design process to come up with an idea? Or do a lot of people just say, hey, make it look really cool, and I'd like a C10 on it? I mean,
well, these guys are really cool. Like John and Carlos and Paul and all the guys that are involved, like the Intervention and the C10 Slowdown. Those guys are super cool. The first year I did one for the Intervention, Carlos got a hold of me and he had an idea. He said he wanted, I think there were 5 trucks he wanted on there, and he definitely wanted them to be in front of some kind of a scene with a barn. And he left it at that.
yeah.
And so me being me, I was like, well, you want a barn? Boy, I'm going to give you a barn. And I think I drew every shingle on the roof. Went nuts with it. But like when I got done, I tried to hide his company logo into the framing of a door. And I put all kinds of stuff in there that even to this day, I'll get people who say, I didn't know you hit this in there. That's so cool.
Turned a T-shirt into an IQ test.
Right. So if you were going to give advice to somebody out there that's like, oh, I'm going to have my own event this year and I'm going to do a T-shirt, or I want to get into designing a shirt, what would you say are like, here's 3 things not to do in the idea process of designing your shirt?
First thing, oh boy, how far do you want to go with this?
Whatever you want, dude. It's your show. I don't care.
We're back to Buffalo again.
Nice callback.
I'm a virtual cornucopia of useless information.
He is. That is absolutely true.
But I would say have an idea of what you want, but when you choose your artist, let them do their thing. And the thing is, you got to go at this long term. Like with the Intervention, I've been fortunate to do this every year. And as I start to work on this year's, we're just building year after year. And I do the same thing with like Dino's Get Down, which if you've never been to that in Phoenix, I'm not trying to promote one of my best buddies in the world, but go to that show. The thing is, like, we've built on that every year from the beginning. Starting back in 2011, we did the first shirt. He gave me a lot of leeway. He just said, here's a couple shirts, here's a couple trucks rather I'd like on that. Do what you do.
Yeah.
And I started then kind of long range thinking, well, if we do this for 5 years, I'm going to tell a story over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And every year I try to build just a little bit. So like with this one, God, this is such a last minute one. This is still fun though. This was held at a water park.
Yeah.
And what was kind of neat about that was every year I know a lot of people come in from out of town. So I try to think, okay, give them something to take back with them that says something about the area the show was at.
Yeah.
Like this is held in Tempe. So there's buildings from Tempe, Arizona in the background.
Yeah.
There's the water flowing through. Dino's a big cat guy. He's got like 50 cats.
Yeah.
So there's always got to be a cat hidden in there. And you'll find in some of my shirts, if you're mean through the process, you get a penis hidden in there. But
Awesome. I love that.
I know a painter that did that to a customer's vehicle.
Oh, I love that.
I know a tattoo artist that's famous for shit like that. So
That's awesome.
at least you only do it on a T-shirt. Somebody else got to live with it on their body for the rest of their life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, only on the shirts. Only on the shirts.
Is it hard to like?
Is it hard? Nicely played. Oh, go ahead.
Is it now like on this card or on this shirt? Did you do the rendering of the car to begin with?
This is funny. This one, there's actually a separate rendering that I did for this that went on the hero cards that were handed out the SEMA show.
Yeah.
This one, I tried to recreate it close, but I never liked the angle that I drew the original rendering at. And this, I just thought showed the car in a whole lot better light. So I just basically redrew the car. And it's a really similar process. This is like the T-shirts are more of a compressed kind of a compressed approach to the way I do my renderings. Like, God, this sounds almost douchey. I'm kind of going, well, let me tell you more about myself. But
again, that's why we had you on. So to talk about you.
What I do though is like, I never got out of learning how to oil paint. And when I was in school, you learn how to oil paint, but you build up the underpainting. Yeah. So everything starts off as, like burnt sienna and, your raw umbers and stuff like that. These really, for lack of a better, crappy looking browns. Right. And you do that just to build core values. And so when I build up my digital renderings, everything's built kind of like that. It starts off in these shades of gray. It starts off, I have one base color. That just might be whatever I decide to use. Maybe it's a light gradient from black to white. And then I start building the shadows on top. And then I start overlaying the colors on top of that. And then I start blowing in highlights and reflections. And like the T-shirts are just a simpler version. Instead of having all those, different layers building up, these are literally just blocks of color. It's kind of like, well, the car's kind of an orangey red, so we're going to have this orangey red. And wherever light is reflecting up, that's going to be lighter. These parts are going to be darker because I only have, like in this case, I think I had 9 colors to work with. And you build each of the 9 colors on its own layer, and there's your shirt.
Wow. Now, what if you do let's say somebody else designed this car, and the car is going to debut, but it's not done, and they give you somebody else's rendering to do a shirt from? Is that hard because you want to make things better and you can't, or what?
Well, in a lot of cases, at that point, I'll always ask them to go back to the original artist.
Yeah.
If that artist can't do T-shirt work for whatever, I'll always try to contact that artist, and I'll have a good long talk with them and tell them, here's what I have to do.
Yeah.
This is what you did wrong.
No, and here's the funny part. It's fascinating. Sometimes you might go into it thinking, oh, I would have never done that. But then, you learn sometimes, and I've learned to look at things in a whole different way. There's some cars that I've looked at. I'm sure there's stuff I've done that guys look at and go, what the hell was he thinking?
Right.
But you get into their head and you go, oh, I totally understand your whole point of view. I see where you're coming from. And especially if it's being done for a show shirt or something, the car's not done. Right. I want to do my best work to interpret what they're doing. Yeah. Because to me, it's kind of a cool thing. If you have that respect for somebody else, you always hope it's going to come back to you. So I'd much rather show somebody's work in its best possible light and give them that, in the hopes that maybe one day they'll be like, oh yeah, I met Brian. He wasn't such a dick.
Yeah.
And, it worked with you. So
yeah, fair point.
Wrong. But yeah, it's tough because you always want it to be your work. It's like your own kid.
Yeah. Charles, you were going to ask him something?
Oh, I was going to ask about on the renderings. All the cars have had some kind of background, and do you do the backgrounds to accentuate a certain part of the car or the color of the car?
Sometimes it's just to hide penises. No, we got to talk off air, Chad. I'm going to show you one, but no, I try to tell a story with those. That deep down inside, I always wanted to be a filmmaker. which is really weird. I have this thing for cinematography. I just always wanted to do an animated film.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an opportunity to play around a little bit. And those backgrounds, they're weird because before we had cell phone cameras that were any good, I would just carry a camera every place I went. And if I went on vacation, I'm the guy who's stopping and snapping pictures down alleyways or running down a street and trying to get the right angle of a building. And I was having this huge library of background stuff. And I always try to do it in a way that just tells a little bit of a story and adds some depth to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a couple pieces where there's, if you look at them, there's 5 or 6 pieces and they all take place over the course of a week.
Right.
And the story told in the background, there's literally a guy running from the cops in the background of every one of these pictures.
That is awesome.
On awry. So it's
say Ed Tilrock is the same way with his. He uses he takes the camera with him wherever he goes and uses that for the background for his paintings. And
totally.
I was asking, we were talking at a show, and I said, I've got like thousands of photos. Do you need anything? He's like, I've got enough stuff for ideas to last me till I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And I was just like holy crap, like wow, okay.
Oh, it's frightening. Yeah, you open up one day and you find out you got like 3 terabytes of nothing but these street pictures.
Yeah.
I've been saying for years, I'm going to organize these one day, and they're organized to a point where it's like Chicago, San Francisco, building. That's my favorite folder.
Building
works good.
Hey, that's one. My second most favorite thing to photograph is basically night architecture. I love something about like nighttime and lights
and the lines and the shadow of street lights and all of that. The perspective changes dramatically.
When I was in Chicago a couple years ago, it's like I wish I had like just like 2 or 3 days just to walk the streets and drive around and take photos of just. I mean, that's probably one of the most beautiful cities. I mean, architecture-wise, I think. Just you have something that's like decades old, but then next door you have something that's like completely modern that was done like a decade ago, kind of thing. It's just
totally.
What
happened there?
What I find amazing is like
I found a penis. Oh.
He's drinking.
Hold on, I'm gonna stop drinking.
You got like 70 more to go.
One thing that I think is entertaining, and I think Crosby and anybody that's gone to Good Guy shows for decades will get this, is that like in 1985, compared to now, the cars on a shirt there was no detail to them like the detail that is now possible on shirts today. And I'm sure part of that is the technology and screen printing. But I also think that back then they were trying to keep them simple, and I don't want to say dumbed down, but you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Right. Totally.
They were doing the lazy version of it.
Right.
Well, and then you had to consider the screens that they used. I mean, comparatively speaking, like just the thread count and the screen pitch that you have now is so fine.
Yeah.
Back then it was like printing with like a screen door.
Right.
I
got you. So it literally was like standard def compared to 4K, but with regards to like pixels, right?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, but y'all are saying that, like back then. Now I'm looking at like even in the late 90s, and I'm gonna really date myself here by doing this.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you all saw the Roland Hard shirts that were lowrider themed, heavy on details, very pinpoint details. Like, I'm actually right now looking at some of the ones that you.
I've never seen any lowrider stuff. I'm not privy to any of that.
Or mini truck shirts. I've never. No, I didn't.
Never. The guy from Ontario.
I didn't buy one today.
I've got the lowrider dude tattooed on my arm. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
This was a thing that went through Washington High School. I attended, my sophomore, junior year.
Right.
But
it's like 5 years ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say the youngest guy on the podcast. He's like, I'm gonna date myself. All of us old men don't give a shit.
It's right there, man.
But no, it's like because you're right. Because I remember I would say probably elementary school time frame, you had like the big dog shirts where they were absolutely cartoony, real blocky. And then not even a few years later, you have these like immaculately detailed with chrome, with spokes, with engravings, with colors, shades. And now we're 20 odd years on from that.
The guy that was born after the Fiero was already discontinued.
Hey, be nice. His blood pressure is at 80 million. He can snap at any moment.
You could have said that 10 years ago, Chad.
Well,
11,
then it would have been you could
something.
snap. Today, I'm afraid of you keeling over from the high pressure. That's what I'm afraid
Well,
of.
it's either a problem for somebody or it's not my problem anymore. One way or the other, we're good.
That's true. That's a fair point. Fair point. Well, dude, we've gone like almost 2 hours. And which, I mean, we normally aim for an hour and we never hit that. We're always around an hour and a half. But Brian, I enjoyed the shit out of this episode. Susie Bowder is on and saying hello.
Hello, Susie.
Anybody that if you just joined us, go back, watch this episode. This is awesome. And we appreciate you guys tuning in. And dude, Brian, seriously, anytime you want to come on, I know we just wore you out on your own stuff, but when you want to come on and just be a guest, you are welcome to just shoot the shit with us on any given, every other Thursday we're live. So you just let me know and I'll send you the link.
Hell yeah, man, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And what did we learn tonight?
Penises.
Yes.
No, be nice to Brian. Or he'll
yes,
put
be nice
penises.
to Brian, or he'll put penises on your shirt. Yes, that's now. So what happens if somebody goes, okay, I got this idea. I want trucks and penises.
No penises then. No.
Okay,
no.
yeah, right. You're like,
You can't have them
I'm
there.
not kidding. It's got a truck on the middle of the thing. Looks like I drew it. The crayon. Anything else, boys, for Stupsky before we end this show for the night?
End it before we talk about another body part, man. Come on.
There you go. Well, to everybody that's out there, again, Problem Child Customs with AK. Go check that out. And Stupsky, do you do Instagram or anything?
Oh yeah, Instagram. Studio PCK.
Studio PCK on Instagram. So go check them out on the gram. You still sell your own shirts and all that stuff? Or
Yeah, I'll be bringing back a line of shirts probably third quarter of this year at the latest.
Awesome.
Get that going. Like I said, disregard the notice on the site that will be changing up. I had put up that I wasn't taking new work at the time because we were so backloaded. I didn't want people waiting, 6 or 8 months to get work out of me because that sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be updating the site soon, and you can see a lot of my more recent work though on Instagram. I try to be consistent there. That's kind of hit and miss. You know how that works.
Yeah. Well, I know. I told you the other day. I have no idea if I can afford you or not, but you and I are going to talk about some art projects.
Oh, we're talking. Let's do this.
I know we're going to talk
make
about
you some art, man,
for sure. I have to say, and I don't have a picture of it on my computer. I just didn't have time before the show to look for it. But
my truck.
You did not your truck.
An AMC Eagle.
You did the drawing for the FM3 Cars and Cones event that was for me and Daphne.
I still want to get you a good print of that. I was not happy with the shirts on that. I don't know who did the printing, but man,
it was. I would love that. I would really love that. It is that artwork. I'll share it on Instagram or something. I'll find it and I'll share it. It is unbelievable and it is the coolest thing and it makes me happy every time I see it. I have Bill Tishner actually printed me a poster of that. I didn't think about that till right now on banner material. He did a banner.
Very cool.
And we hung it in the shop and it'll go back up in the new shop now, but it's super cool. And I always just appreciated so much that was one of your drawings. So cool with the wagon and everything. So I appreciate that, dude.
That was an honor for me, man. When that came through and I saw that in the project queue, I jumped on that because I wanted to do something for you that meant something to you. And it was so funny. I was trying to do that thing. I wanted that to be something you'd like.
Oh, dude,
And
for sure.
it made my day when you told me how much you like that, man.
Oh. I'll tell
that's
you.
what
So
it's
I
about.
have the banner that Bill Tishner had printed for me there at Holly. I do have the T-shirts, and I also have, and I think Susie actually may have helped with these. Susie Bowder. I have 2 pillows that were made. Either
Very
Susie
cool.
or Carrie did these. I have 2 pillows that were made from the T-shirt, and then and yeah, two pillows, and I have the T-shirts, and then the banner. But I would love, if you just got me the digital file, I would love to do one and have it printed and framed to hang in the house. That would be awesome.
Do you have? Did they? If nobody got it to you, I probably still got it packed away. If you don't have the original pencil drawing for that, I'll get you that.
Oh, I don't. But
You should have that.
awesome.
Let me make sure you get that.
Okay, dude,
Way
that would be
cool.
rad.
I will
That would
find
be
that
super
for you.
cool.
Very cool.
I appreciate that.
And it's really cool that Susie
yeah, because
did that
actually,
stuff.
like Crosby would want a copy of the pencil, like the pencil drawing, like a print of the pencil drawing. Like
Yep.
there's a couple of people like Crosby who were real close with Daphne that would
Mhm.
love to have that. Like that would be cool. So if I had that, I would
In
make
touch
sure
with me. Let me know. I'll get you something out of that.
that would
Let
be
me
awesome.
make sure you guys get that stuff.
That's
Cool.
awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
Well, dude, and like I said, anybody needs something, hit him up. Brian Stupski, I so appreciate it. I feel like we all learned things tonight, and it was awesome. Like, seriously, great to have you. Totally appreciate it.
Dude.
And to everybody that's out there, thank you for joining us tonight. This
man.
this
It's
this was
nice
a good time.
having a face behind the talent now.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
thanks. I'm sorry it looks like this. I wish it was
No.
better.
We can't say anything, so
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at us.
you seen this crowd?
Mike Cunningham, who's one of the guys watching right now, who is a diehard Ford guy and just a super nice dude out of Pennsylvania. He saw the Thunderbird and made a comment, and I put it up there about, oh my God, that's amazing. And he likes obscure Fords, and I am sure he is like on Marketplace trying to find one of those right now. The cool thing about that is even if you screwed it up and did most of it with a Sawzall and a MIG welder, it would still make one of those into a bitchin' car. If your version was inspired by that and it was really rough and ready race car style, it would really be awesome still. So yeah, I gotta say that one's cool.
Well,
find a T-Bird. I'll bring the Sawzall blades, McTaggart.
Yeah, and if what'd you say, Mike Cunningham? If Mike's looking for a copy of that, get a hold of me through the website. If I don't have the print in stock, I'll get one made. We'll come to some conclusion on how to get you one.
That'd be awesome.
Cool.
Very cool.
Chad, different subject. When you get a chance, post pictures of the Deuce. It's for sale.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Send me the listing.
It's in the truck.
Okay.
Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. So appreciate you guys. Thank you to all you guys, all the guests. Wait, I'm gonna turn this off, but I want to talk to you guys.
You
real
need to
quick.
get some sleep.
Hang tight for a minute.
We're gonna have a long day tomorrow.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here.
See ya.
Thank you.